Right. Who decided to raise the dead on a work day?
Hey, Pally, it's me. Just thought I'd let you know that there was a small incident with a couple of wasps that turned out to be filled with a zombie virus? Who would have guessed, right? It'll probably die down in a couple of days. 3 or 4 tops. Anyway, I'll talk to you after this is all over. Bye!
Oh, great. What am I supposed to do for 4 days? Oh, I know. In light of my current situation, I still have my debut review to do. Might as well kill two birds with one stone then. Doing review and doing research in the only way I know. Digital interactive media. Video games. Doing a video about video games. Just show the game screen. Good old Capcom. They've been around since even before I was around. Playing games for arcades and home consoles since their founding in 1974. From Mega Man to Resident Evil, Street Fighter to Monster Hunter, Capcom has a game for almost anyone. That brings us to my research, and the current game that will hopefully help me understand what to do in the current situation. That game being Dead Rising. I'm using the PC port because it's easy to record, and my capture card is currently elsewhere. Frank West. Oh, your video game career is going to be a real weird ride. And Dead Rising 1 is the beginning of it all. A journalist looking for his next big scoop brings our main character to Willamette and its massive mall, which just so happens to be having a small zombie problem. After taking a few photos from the helicopter, a mechanic that helps you gain points depending on the photo you take, Frank drops off on top of the roof of the mall, where he meets Carlito, who may or may not be cool. Through a door down to a safe room, and then after a cutscene of seeing someone die, sucks to be them I guess, we enter the entrance plaza, where we meet some survivors. Following this lovely introduction, they all die when an old lady decides her dog, which isn't even being attacked by the zombies, and is in need of help. My question though is, how on earth did the dog even get there to begin with? Anyway, after making our getaway and getting back to the safe room, Frank finds out that nobody but him made it back. What a shame. During the events that follow, we gotta save survivors, kill a psychopath, and figure out how this started. Oh, and kill a ton of zombies as well. All within 3 in-game days, or give or take, depending on if you want to go for the true ending. As much as the 3-day in-universe time limit can be annoying sometimes, it's not too much of a hassle because, if I'm to speak openly, Dead Rising has somewhat of a roguelike element to it, which can help first-time players. With advantages like if you die, you get to keep your levels and photos, but will have to start the game from the beginning. Unless you save at one of the bathrooms or use one of the beds in the safe houses to save your game's progress, which then you can revert to that previous save state. Sometimes I like to suggest using 2 for just the case of 1 in case you want to fall back to, and the other for in case you want to change what you've done in a playthrough or you make a mistake and want to go back. Let's talk a little bit more about the camera's functions. The camera has 2 major functions. First being taking photos of zombies, survivors, and anything else you come across, and showing specific photos to specific people during specific missions. Such missions include Kent. Oh, we'll get to Kent. But let's go over what happens in the first day. First day in the mall isn't much to talk about. but I'll try my best, mostly consisting of wading through zombies, saving or killing survivors, and the first couple of psychopath battles, including the first Carlito battle, which can easily be taken down with a mannequin torso. The first non-needed to fight psychopath would be Adam the Clown, a popular character for his voice, his weapon, and his music, which people like to continuously mention became Frank's theme in one of the versus Capcom games. Another psychopath that's able to be fought on the first day is Cletus, the gun shop owner. He is rather difficult to fight if you don't know what you're doing, and a lot of people highly suggest grabbing an Uzi from around the mall and then standing outside of his shop and occasionally shooting at him when he's not shooting at you, which does work rather well. There's one psychopath I would suggest not fighting on your first go through until you beat Cletus. That would be the convicts. They are fast, tanky, and have a machine gun on their vehicle, which can get you into a damage loop if you're not careful when fighting them. Of course, there's also Kent. I don't like Kent. It requires you to have specific photos on specific days and be in a specific spot and talk to him. If you don't get the correct photo or the right amount of points, he just vanishes. Which is why I like to just deal with him when I first meet him, which honestly is a lot better than going through his mission. Okay, let's move away from talking about the psychopaths and talk about the survivors. Survivors in Dead Rising 1 suck. Like, really suck. Like, trying to complete a save all survivors run can be really quickly ruined by their personalities. Some survivors stop in place and panic due to zombies around them. Some survivors want to try and take all the zombies out by themselves, which is a terrible situation to be in because they won't stop until it is, but they can't because they're survivors, and the only one who can probably take care of them is you. During recording footage for the review, there was a situation where several different survivors decided that they couldn't figure out how to get around a potted plant, literally causing me to have to restart the game at certain points because they were too much to deal with and the missions were too tight of a time when it came to acquiring them. The only real reason to save them is to level up quickly, and of course some of them are a lot easier to level up with by saving. For example, the two on the roof can be easily saved on repeat, but I wouldn't suggest doing that because that's just a bit boring. But unless you're wanting to level up slightly quicker, the only other reason to save them is to get all the achievements. Otherwise you're just going to be causing yourself a bit of a headache. The second day kind of ramps up a bit. More survivors, a handful of more psychopaths, including a second fight with Carlito, which also includes rescuing Dr. Barnaby, which is a relevant plot character, alongside characters such as Brad, Otis, and Jesse. Dr. Barnaby has some information about the whole situation going on here, which is why we need to find him. Another fight is with a very angry shopkeeper who's keeping medical supplies from Frank, as well as Isabel, because both Brad and Carlito were injured in the fight trying to save Dr. Barnaby. And a little bit later, you also fight Isabel, who is riding on a motorcycle outside of the exact same shopping place. Another fight in that area is also with Steve Blum in a fishing hat, and a fight with a police officer who is rather inappropriate with random people in the mall. He is not a good fight either. The reason for that is she randomly decides to keep people prisoner in a clothing store. Oh, and you also fight some snipers. If you don't take out Kent like I did in day one, you have to meet him and show him a photo, which is a bit better than one of them that he shows you by a specific amount of points. And then later he shows up again on day 3 to fight you in the Pacific Plaza where you first meet him by chaining you to the roof of the fountain. Oh, and a cult decides to show up as well, who you fight there later on day 3. During this event, there was also a situation where several different survivors decided to help fight the cult, and they kind of blew up. Another great reason to fight Adam is the fact that you not only get a survivor, which helps you level up, but as well as a shortcut between two of the plazas, which allows you to avoid going around outside by the convicts. After solving the whole situation that was previously mentioned, we get the information from Dr. Barnaby, who tells us about the whole backstory of the zombie situation, even though it's a complete lie. Because later on we found out from Isabel that the entire situation was, well, I'll show clips of that.
Fine. I'll explain why all of this is your fault. There was no drug trade in Santa Cabeza. Just an American research facility. They were doing research on some sort of parasitic insect. Like a wasp. A wasp that turns living things into zombies.
Afterwards, we find out Carlitos also placed bombs in the tunnels of the mall. Besides that, we also got to fight the cult leader, like I previously mentioned, save a killer psychopath who's a pyromaniac, and avoid getting hit by Carlito in his van while trying to get rid of the bombs. It's a real nightmare. After taking care of the bombs, and all the other situations that I've previously mentioned, it turns out that Brad was taken out by Carlito by forcing him into the exact same tunnels we were currently in, which means he's now either Zombie Chow or a zombie himself. Which you can actually go find in a different scene if you be bothered to go down tunnels again. Carlito also is injured though, and is dragged away by a butcher, who has his entire working area in the basement of the mall. Not sure if he'll get good customers, but that's not my choice, that's his. The reason we need to save him is because he's the only one who knows the password to his laptop, which is not only jamming the communications to the people who come rescue us, but is also kind of keeping a couple of secrets on the laptop that Isabel wants to find out. Secret just as the fact that he's infected a bunch of orphans with the virus that he has right here. That is a continuity error that comes up later though, and I'm not going to talk about that today. Hopefully I can get out of this situation, and maybe I will talk about that later. Oh, and Jesse's also turned to a zombie as well as Brad. Turns out they aren't very good with the whole stressful situation. The military arrives on the 4th day as well, which is just perfect. Okay, let's get into overtime. Overtime is a mode that depends on the actions you've done, how many cases you finished, and what sort of ending you'll get. Certain requirements are needed to achieve different endings. For the best ending, ending A, you need to complete all cases, talk to Isabel at 10 AM, which requires waiting a long amount of time if you're doing it quickly like I've been doing, and go to the helipad at the right time when Frank needs to. The only issue is that the helicopter pilot might have picked up an unknown passenger in a zombie, which ends up with the entire helicopter that Frank was going to use to get out of here crashing, which puts him into a slightly awestruck state while zombies come towards him. Thankfully he's saved by Isabel though, but turns out he's been infected, and if he can't get treatment soon, he'll turn. Thankfully, Isabel knows what's needed to make a cure. You have to first go around the mall though and collect a bunch of random items and avoid being captured by the military, who have drones. After acquiring the equipment that she needs, you also need to go out and get 10 queens, which can be easily done by going through the underground area and having a bit of a joyride and then collecting a couple of queens. After that, we have to go into the mall's park and go down a secret tunnel that turns out to be in a random obelisk in the center, which thankfully the helicopter pilot revealed. After going through a horde of zombies by using a pheromone that Isabel created, we get to a vehicle, which hopefully we can get out of here. But it turns out the military general that was in charge of cleaning up the entire situation decided to hop into a tank and chase us, which results in a fight scene including shooting out the random bits of the tank and then fisticuffs on top of the tank itself, which end the game and the story of Dead Rising 1. Of course there's alternative endings, but that's not what we're going to talk about today, because hopefully we can get our own A ending and survive this zombie apocalypse I'm currently in. To sum up, Dead Rising is a fantastic game that honestly is a classic. The game was so popular they even decided to make a Nintendo Wii version. The Wii version, subtitled Shop Till You Drop, used a modified version of Resident Evil 4's engine and was okay. One upside I can give you is they decided to go with the annoying poodle that caused zombies to get into the mall and play the damn thing as a regular enemy. The sequel, Dead Rising 2, brought in a new main character, Chuck Green. The idea of combat weapons, but that's a story for another time. If I don't die, that is.
Hey, Pally, the zombies downstairs, they seem to have thinned out a little bit. Could you maybe go take care of them or something? That'd be great, thanks.
Well, I think I know how to deal with the zombie situation now. See you all later.